Hey, Chris.
What's up there, Ike?
Not much. We are back with our third season, and we are really excited about our guest today.
Yes, congratulations on the third season kickoff.
Yeah, and you know what's really exciting? We just got picked up on rippedtv.live.
I saw that. That's amazing.
Yeah, so they have a lot of indie content, and they start, putting up shows, and they're going to start weekly just dropping random episodes of Loose Lips on their channel.
That's awesome. And you can watch that anywhere, right?
Yeah,
Apple TV.
Roku, yep, Android, Apple, everything.
That's great. Congratulations.
Yeah, I'm very excited.
You're moving up and on.
Wheezy and George are in town.
That's right. Moving on up.
So how you been, Chris? Good?
I've been good. Yeah, we opened up a farm out on Long Island for people with developmental disabilities. So that's been our focus this past 6 months to a year, if not longer. But it's exciting. I have a great team I'm working with, and we're developing some really great programming for people on the spectrum or have a developmental disability, and it's just been wonderful to be a part of.
Oh, congratulations. That's amazing.
Thank you.
I love that you're doing that.
Yeah.
Good. So I really want to get into this interview because there's a lot of fans out there that have been waiting for this. So just a quick little update. Our show is sponsored by Uberlube. That's right, Uberlube, people. Visit uberlube.com. My mother's face will probably be right up on the picture when the website pulls up. And they come in glass bottles and travel size as well. We're going to have to get some of these to Adam. Salons use them to finish the hair on their clients. So visit them, uberlube.com. They're amazing. They've been supporting us since, 50 Shades of Gay started like 5 years ago. So
yeah, I always hear Tim talking about how it puts sheen in his hair.
Yeah, well.
And I don't know anything about
from the Uberlube, yeah. So you could also send questions to us, or maybe you need advice. You could send it to Ike or Tim and send it to Facebook page. It's facebook.com/Loose Lips the podcast, or you can send it to ikeavellievents@hotmail.com, and we'll try our best to answer all your questions. Yay!
All right. Our guest tonight is returning for a fourth time. He is back to chat about his epic project of producing the re-releases of Sheena Easton. He is here to discuss the fifth release he has produced for Cherry Red Records along with RT Industries.
And the release you were talking about is the 1981 debut album from Sheena Easton called Take My Time. It is out today in deluxe CD and DVD. There are unreleased tracks, bonus cuts, liner notes like nobody's business. I learned so much from this, let me tell you. And input from Chris Neal, Dominic Bugatti, Flory Palmer, and Peter Vale.
Please welcome the incredible Adam Mattera.
Adam!
Hello. Nice to see you guys again. How you doing?
Oh, what a pleasure, as always. This is the highlight of our year, I'm telling you, every year.
All the way from London.
Yes.
Yes, indeed.
So before we even get started, I have to tell you, there's a little story behind Sheena's first album, obviously. So my grandparents had friends in the UK, right?
Right.
I first heard Sheena, it was, I think, April of 81. And of course, the single was #1 in May, and I got the album. And then my grandparents had told their friends in the UK, they were like, oh, my grandson loves Sheena Easton, and they sent over Take My Time, the actual vinyl.
Right.
Wow.
Which still had the original tag on it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which was crazy. And I'm looking at the original cover from the UK, and I'm thinking, oh my God, it's so much brighter than the one here in the States.
Different. They are different, yeah. The American version was a sort of different tone. Same shot.
Yeah.
Tones were different. Deeper.
So dark.
Yeah.
So,
And of course, the album was different in America. It was edited down.
Yeah. Oh, edited down, watered down. That picture, it's like, oh my God. She looks so good on the UK cover. It's so bright and refreshing. And then the other one's like, well, here she is.
Yeah, I always wonder what goes into the choices for that. But yeah, Adam's right. The US releases always were 10. 5 on side 1, 5 on side 2.
And I never knew why that was until recently.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
What was it?
I was speaking to Chris Neal about it. As you mentioned, I interviewed Chris Neal, the producer of the album, the first 3 Sheena albums, in fact.
Yeah.
And mentioned that. I was like, why did they cut the albums down to 10 tracks? Because the first album and her third album, Madness and Money and Music, were both 12 and cut down to 10 in America. And the reason was apparently, and I looked it up afterwards actually and found out a bit more information, is to do with how publishing was worked out in America compared to UK and Europe. So the way the publishing rights for the songwriters were calculated somehow meant that they needed to limit the amount of tracks in America. And it happened with the Beatles albums as well and multiple others.
Wow.
I don't know the specifics of what it was, but that's why they would limit it to 10 tracks in the US.
Well, that's
I wonder,
fascinating.
I guess it made it easier to figure out the publishing, right?
I guess, or maybe...
I guess people from the UK are smarter because they can do better math.
Well, I was always excited about the B-sides when they came out. That was, so fun.
Because the B-sides that she was recording during that era were as good. I mean, they weren't throwaway at all. They were great songs. Some of the songs that end up on the B-sides were better than the songs on the albums in some cases.
Yeah, I agree.
Certainly as good as, arguably. And also there were an opportunity, I think, for her to show a different side of herself, particularly on this debut album. Whereas the album itself, most of it was very commercially focused. Certain things she did on the B-sides, like there's a track called Summer's Over, for example.
Yeah.
It's almost like a bossa nova type. Moody My Love is another one, where it's a very sort of delicate, more introspective kind of sound. May arguably not as commercial, but a lovely, it shows another aspect to her vocally. You maybe don't get. But certainly that debut album, what you did get was quite rangy, really. People maybe had a certain idea of her from the singles that were released, which were either very bright, fizzy pop or the big ballads. But then on the album, you've got something much more rocky, something much more country, something more smooth R&B. There's a lot of stuff going on, and it's which makes it a really strong debut, I think.
I think it was a smart idea too, because it showed her range and what she was capable of. So if something didn't work on the pop side, maybe they could have got her over on the country radio or R&B.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that Chris Neal said, which I was really I was so pleased that he because he hasn't done loads of interviews. He doesn't do many interviews, and I didn't actually think. I was hopeful, but I wasn't. It wasn't guaranteed. But we spent quite a lot of time talking about the album, and he mentioned his favorite song actually was "Cry," which is the most country sounding one. Wow. And he said he was convinced that if she had put her mind to it, if that was the decisions that were made, she could have, been marketed as a kind of country singer, and you could really hear that in that song. Which actually, I didn't know this until I was researching the album. That song was covered and was a country hit for Tanya Tucker a few years later.
Yes.
Cry.
Yes.
It's a great song.
Per the amazing liner notes, I have to tell you, out of all the releases so far, this has been the most chock full of information that I took away from it. I don't know, Chris, you too, or...
Yeah, I always love your, it's, because we never really got that before, a behind the scenes look at the making of these albums. So this is all new information that's a fan's delight just to learn about.
Yeah, it's fascinating, really, because a lot of the stuff I was discovering as I was talking to the different songwriters. I tried to spoke to quite a few of them. The main ones, like you said, being Florrie Palmer, who wrote most famously 9 to 5 Morning Train, and also When He Shines. Dominic Bugatti, who was part of the team of Bugatti and Musker that wrote 2 or 3 songs. Mon Girl being the most famous one, and So Much in Love being the other one. Yeah, amazing song. And Peter Vale of the team Leeson and Vale, who were like probably her main songwriters during that early period. All of them were happy to talk about it and had really fascinating insights into Sheena's career at the time and the whole process and the world of songwriting in that era in the 80s, which is amazing. So you found out things like Modern Girl was at one point going to be recorded by Elkie Brooks.
Mm-hmm.
And she had it on hold to record it. And so when it ended up going to Sheena, Dominic Bugatti, part of the team that wrote it, told me like they were like crestfallen a bit, like, oh my God, who's this guy? We don't know who this person is. This is some unknown girl. It's being a song. It's gonna, it's being thrown away. And of course, it ends up being a hit in Britain and America, a huge hit,
right?
And helped, be a big part of their careers as songwriters. So there's all those fascinating aspects to it, really. When you speak to the songwriters, you get more of a backstory to the whole thing, really.
Right, how it happened. Like even Florrie Palmer with When He Shines. Now, I was always hearing Sheena on the radio, whether it be Morning Train, Modern Girl, Your Eyes Only, but when He Shines, when she sang it on Johnny Carson Live, I thought, oh my God, but who knew 40-something years later what the song was really about? Which
that was amazing.
Blown away.
I had no idea. Yes, the story. So Florrie Palmer had written that song about her husband, her first husband, who was bipolar, and had sort of a mental health issue. So when you listen to the song, there's actually another verse which wasn't recorded by Sheena, which you can hear if you look up if you do a little search on YouTube, you'll find Florrie Palmer's original version, which was because she also was she had a recording career of her own. That never became huge, but she became much more successful as a songwriter, and she was much more comfortable being behind the scenes rather than in front of behind the mic, so to speak. But she did record When He Shines, and you could find her version, and there's actually a whole other verse, which she didn't record. But that's what the song was about. It was about her husband. It was about the relationship with somebody who's kind of, the line in the song is sometimes a tramp, sometimes a dude. He changes color just like a chameleon. And so that's referring to that, the mood swings.
Right.
Yeah. And so,
brilliant.
And Sheena, of course, took the whole song and made it completely her own. But great song. Of course, that was one of the songs that was not included on the American release initially. The reason being because the US label, because they wanted to keep it just to being 10 tracks, what we just spoke about, but they were convinced that When He Shines should be held back for what would be the second American album. Got it. Because it was such a big potential hit. So they'll keep it back to be the big hit of the second album.
See, now this is I guess what I've heard through the years about When He Shines. And so this is fascinating to hear this, because what I heard originally was the US didn't think it was a single for the US market. And so they did not include it in the first album for that reason. And then she performed it in her first television appearance on The Tonight Show. People started to call the record store asking, where can I get that song? And then that's how the record company started getting feedback. So then at the last minute, when the US version of the second album was coming out, they removed Isn't It So? But if you look at the original US pressing, it says string arrangements on Isn't It So? They still had that printed on the back, even though the song itself was not on.
Oh, I have the album. Oh God, hold on.
Oh, okay, that's interesting, isn't it?
So that was why they put that. They decided, let's put it on the second album.
I have both versions. Let's see.
Oh,
So
on the American one?
On the American one, I think it's under the picture on the back. They have credits there, I think, right?
Yep. String arrangement.
And I think there's something about.
Yep.
It says it, right?
Yes, I don't know. I mean, I think it was Florrie herself who wrote it. Told me that story about When He Shines. And I think Dominic Bugatti, who also helped on the writing of that song, may have mentioned that as well. So that's what I guess they were hearing, but I don't know. Maybe the reason that the credits were left was because there was some error and people just didn't pick up on it when they were just duplicating it in America. I don't know, but it's
so funny.
It would seem an odd choice to perform a song on television that was never going to be released in that market. But who?
Yeah,
I don't know. But
I don't know who.
I was going to say she did
when
perform
she
on
performed on live TV shows. She would sometimes
Yeah.
pick songs, like when she was promoting the Lover and Me tour, for example.
Sure.
She, instead of doing a ballad from The Lover and Me, she did I Wouldn't Beg for Water, which was like
Right.
not really a hit, but it was in the US. It was maybe an adult contemporary hit, but it wasn't a pop hit, and it was from 5 years earlier.
Whoa,
So
yeah,
sometimes she just sang songs that she wanted to sing. And I think When He Shines, she knew was a good showcase for her in comparison to Morning Train.
Yes, I think that's one of the things about, like, when we were talking about before about the range of her ability vocally, is that it wasn't really on those the biggest hits from the record here in America and in the UK, which were 9 to 5, Morning Train, and Mon Girl. You don't really. You do. There are sections in it where you can hear her soaring. You can tell if you know what you're listening for. But as a showcase for her vocally, it's not really until a song like When He Shines. You absolutely, there's no doubt about it. She's moving into a Barbara Streisand kind of area all there. And that marks her apart. We've talked about this before as like quite a different proposition to her contemporaries, who in the UK was like Kim Wilde, Toya Wilcox, so the kind of solo females in that era, who were all had their own merits and were great pop singers or whatever. But she was a different proposition, really, because she could be on a West End stage, as she later went on being. She could sing a Bond theme. She could do, she vocally she was so much more than just a sort of perky pop singer, which is maybe what some people perceive to have at the beginning.
Yeah, well, I think it was a smart choice. I mean, the first album to be strictly setting her across with all the different genres, because like you mentioned, Kim Wilde, I think they just set her as a new wave kind of, performer. And I think that's probably where it got lost a little bit with Kim. But Sheena was just a singer and she could do anything. And that was what I loved most about the first album.
You can redo anything. The song that I think it's probably my favorite song on the album. I don't know. There's so many great songs. So I don't want to say my favorite song is, because then tomorrow will be a different one. But one of the ones that never fails to sort of stop me in my tracks really is Calm Before the Storm.
Yeah.
Which is another Leeson and Vale song. And it's so stripped back. It's more or less piano and vocal.
Yeah.
And so such a mature performance, I think, from her at such a young age. That's quite sort of like, sort of startling, really. It's not as much. It's not as much as When He Shines. It's not as big, much a big belter as When He Shines. It's a bit more reined in and quieter, but amazing.
You should check out. There's a couple of bootlegs, live versions from around 81, 82. Of that song that is one I think from 82 that's actually better than the album version.
Wow, really? Wow.
Yeah, because she had matured a little bit. I think touring helped just open up her voice a little bit. One of the things your liner notes revealed was the fact that, there was this natural ability of hers to adapt to the material. Reading about how Chris said, she was phrasing on Cry like a country singer.
Yes.
And then Dominic was saying when he heard So Much in Love, she was singing it almost with a little bit of an R&B edge to it. And so that's one of the things that became, I believe, a trademark of her abilities, is to be able to adapt her vocal phrasing and the way that she interpreted a song based on the genre. And a lot of singers would have difficulty with that. If you gave Barbra Streisand an R&B song, and she tried to sing it like an R&B singer, it might not be convinciable. And yet she's an amazing singer, who has soul. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So
I'm trying to buffer what I just said because there's a big Barbara Streisand thing.
And it's funny you mentioned that. So as a Barbara sidebar, I did see there was an interview recently where Richard Perry was talking about recording Stony End with Barbara Streisand, which famously was when she was transitioning in the early 70s from being one kind of singer, I suppose, into another, opening up to a more sort of pop rock, soul even feel. And she found it really difficult. So it's not a mark of the in the end, of course, she cracked it. She's Barbara, but she had difficulty keeping the beat and the rhythm because it was so different from like a more Broadway based school, I suppose, that she was coming from, which makes sense. Mm-hmm. And it's not so much the mark of how good the singer is, whether they can do that or not, but there's a certainly Sheena had that innate ability, to be able to transform and find the phrasing and the timing across these different genres, and still holds that record. Still, I mean, it's decades after she said it now, being the only artist ever to have top 3 hits, Billboard charts in the country, in the R&B, in the adult contemporary, in the Hot 100, across all these different genres.
And the dance.
Amazing. The dance, of course, which is amazing, really.
Yeah.
I even know I've done that since then. I'm really surprised.
There he is.
She was doing it at the time when, which is something that Dominic Bagatti talked about in the notes, she was doing it at a time when this was pre auto-tune and before they could really fix things in studios. They could do things like take a line from this take 1, take another line from take 7, and do a seamless vocal. So it wasn't like everything had to be sung in one take live. But what they didn't do was you couldn't make someone sound like something else. What you hear is the notes that came out of their mouth. And so as he said, she was always in tune and on time.
Right.
And he was saying it's remarkable how many singers aren't, particularly singers. He was saying that he's worked with in more recent times. You just don't have that ability, and she had that. Of course, she was a novice when she started recording this album. She'd never been in a big recording studio, so she had to learn the ropes, so to speak. And Chris Neal talked about how it took a while, particularly when she was recording. When they started out, they were doing like Modern Girl, which was the first thing she recorded, and the B-side from that, Paradox. That was 1979. So kind of the best part, not quite 2 years before the album came out, because it was quite a long process, really.
Did he talk about what he was teaching her with regards to recording? Because there is that infamous scene from the first recording session that she had with Modern Girl where she was off, and it was due to her having some vocal problems that day. That was it. She was admitting it. She was like, and also I think part of what they did to correct it was they took out one side of the headphones, the mix, so she could only hear her voice in that side, and then she heard the music in the other side. And that she says in the documentary, "Oh, this does work. I can hear when I'm going off now." Yeah. And so, but it was a great scene because it was, when Sheena was like politely saying to Chris, "Can you just tell me when you hear something off, if you can let me know as soon as you hear it, so I don't keep singing it over and over again and then it becomes memory." And he said, "All right, I'll just come out and smash your face in." And it was like a good scene about their sense of humor and like how how Chris Neal was.
Well, that's the big time, is it?
Yeah,
big time. I haven't watched it for a while. I forgot that scene. That's great. Yeah, I mean, he talked about how, not so much in specifics of certain incidences, but he talked about the general need to encourage her and take time at the beginning to get her used to the whole process of recording in a big recording studio. She'd never been there before. And psychologically as well, the difference between being a young girl from singing in clubs and bars around Scotland to going to a different place, to London, to a massive studio where loads of money is being spent with, with seasoned session musicians playing. There's all that to get your head around as well, not just the singing, it's the whole pressure of it. So yeah, he did talk about it a bit, but their relationship, I think they were really had a strong bond, him and Sheena.
Yeah.
That lasted for quite a few years. He really was her mentor. He was more than just a producer to her. He was like a mentor as well. There was that tight team around her through those early years that remained with her from 79 basically till 83, I think. Yeah, to 83.
And still was sending her songs, I believe. Like even for My Cherie, I think there was one on there that was produced by him.
That's right. Yes. So the last album, the last whole album they did was Mavs Money and Music, but then he, Chris Neal, produced 3 tracks on My Cherie. He actually, it's not in the line notes for this, but he did. I've spoken to him about for the line notes on other albums, all the albums that they did together, and he actually told me that he felt that the thing that he was most proud of that they ever did together vocally was Dance Away the Blues. Oh. Which was also the last track they ever did together, which was on My Cherie. One of the 3 tracks he did on My Cherie.
It definitely gave me a feel back to the original recordings when they worked together. It definitely had that feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, my favorite of those 3 was All I Ask of You, which I felt had like a Lisa Stansfield kind of quality to it.
Yes, I guess it did. I never thought about it before. Yeah. It was he was just saying how much, it was almost like a complete, this was a person that together, where he had never worked with someone who'd gone from such a sort of complete unknown into being an international star so quickly. And then when they reunited for My Cherie, which was no, it's not 20 years, but it's over 15 years. Yeah, 15. Yeah, so that's a long time, and a lot had happened.
Yeah,
especially to Sheena in that time. She'd gone into this huge amount of fame in America, and that to hear her, the way she had matured, and her ability and her confidence, and the way she approached was so markedly different from those early days. Of course.
Oh yeah,
amazing.
Yeah, that must have been a unique experience for both of them, and probably satisfying just to come together and work together again.
Yeah.
They both were very lucky to have found each other. It was like the fates aligned, and Chris was obviously an established UK producer and A&R guy. Probably he was closer to an A&R guy. He was a real song guy. He really found songs for people, but finding this amazing singer to kind of work with and explore what she can do, which is kind of what this first album documents, is it's such an unusual debut in the sense of the way it came to be, and how you have this established producer who's given this singer from the record company matched up, and thankfully they both gelled, and they both creatively liked the same style of music, and she trusted him, and they explored different sounds and different styles, and they were both apt to do that. They weren't afraid to do that, and they understood the concept of an album, and how you can have and you should have some diversity in the context of an album. And then because of that success, he was able to springboard that into further success down the line, which is great.
Yeah. I got the impression as well that they, it was very much, I was going to say not on his shoulders, but like the EMI trusted him creatively in collaboration with her to make those decisions and to like cast the album and go through all the songs and put it all together. And they had certain ideas. I know that originally before the TV documentary even came out, of course, because that came out after the recordings that actually the initial 2 singles that happened. She was signed to EMI through that process, and they were following it and recording it. And she was signed to a singles deal, not an albums deal. So he found those songs, or collect together they did, and they preferred. They felt that Modern Girl should be the first single over 9 to 5. They felt it was more commercial. And of course, it didn't actually become a hit the first time round. It was only until after it aired that Modern Girl was really a hit.
Right.
But all the trust was in Chris and his team, Chris and Sheena, to come up with the songs. It wasn't like that. Then they had input. I'm sure if there was something they didn't like, they wouldn't have put it out. But all those songs were coming from him and his contacts. And so I don't know whether now, when an album be making, it would be so much trust would necessarily put into one person creatively in that way to launch a new star. I mean, it wasn't like Sheena was a singer-songwriter. She wasn't a self-contained act creating her own music in that way. She was reliant on the people she worked with to come up a team, and there was a lot of trust in them, I think, to come up with that. And you had so part of the diversity you see was from the decisions that they were making together to want that. It almost feels like some songs like no one ever knows, the last track on the album, which was one of the ones that didn't make it to the American one. It's such a complex, it's such a unusual arrangement. It's almost like theatrical to a certain. It goes through different tempo changes, and it's a really complex thing. But it's a million miles away from Modern Girl. Really.
Right, the way it builds too.
The other thing that distinguishes this album, I think, from the others is that this was a very British pop sounding album. I think because of the international success that no one could have predicted, right? They were hoping that this was going to be a success in the UK. And then you know how difficult it is to break an act from the UK. Look at Cliff Richard, Kylie Minogue, had a couple of hits in the US, but were massive in the UK. But once they had this international success, you can imagine now the pressure moving forward from the American side of the label. Absolutely. That you have to have some American songwriters on here. You have to gear your sound towards this major market. But the first album, I think, really is a British pop album. It has obviously that international appeal, but it definitely has that sound rooted in the UK.
Yeah. I think the only song that the song that feels the most American on it maybe is So Much in Love. It feels a little bit more leaning towards that. But by the time you get to the second and the third album, you can feel, and I discussed it with Chris as well, there was definitely that sense that like we have the American market to consider now. And as time went on, it was like you could see how the second and the third album are balancing acts in a way between trying to keep trying to cater to American radio, trying to be still be British and European, and sort of doing all until, of course, after that.
See, I still felt it was still British with the first 3, because once you got to Best Kept Secret and they were all American players, it was just a different sound altogether.
Oh, definitely. Once it got to Best Kept Secret, it was completely both feet full in. We've gone to LA. We're recording in LA. We're working with American producers. It's completely American.
Yeah.
But I think on the second and the third album that she did with Chris Neal, you start hearing a sense of, well, if you think about the second album on You Could Have Been With Me, there are songs like Telephone Lines and another song, maybe Trouble in the Shadows.
I'm Not Worth the Hurt, which was written by a country singer in the US.
Yeah, written by Deborah Allen. Yeah. And what's the song which sings "Don't Even Waste Your Dime"? That's on Telephone Line. Yeah, so it's like she's singing about dimes, and she's singing about other things. There's other I can't bring them to mind now. On Mad Funny Music, there's a song called "There When I Needed You," which is very, very sort of.
Ray Parker Jr. wrote that.
He did.
Yeah.
Ray Parker Jr. Well, I didn't even realize that.
And it has a kind of Doobie Brothers almost feel to it. that track.
Yeah, definitely an R&B undertone. Sure.
Yeah.
Did Chris?
Yeah.
Did he talk about the first time? Because there's a story that I think Sheena told on a radio interview about when they recorded Morning Train. She didn't know, it was very quick, and she thought, oh, that vocal session went too quick compared to Modern Girl. And she thought, I must have messed up. He just ended the session early. And then I think the next day or whenever he finished mixing it, he came to her apartment, got her to come downstairs and played it in the car. And he was like shaking with excitement, saying to her, this is going to be massive. This is going to be such a hit. And she was just looking at him like, how does he know that this is going to be? And it turns out he was right. He heard something magical in the final mix of that made him realize this has massive potential.
Wow.
And did he talk at all about that experience, about hearing Morning Train when it was finished?
No, not specifically that anecdote. No, not that specific thing. But it was interesting when you were saying that. I was thinking about how, Florrie Palmer, who wrote it, she, as she talks about in the line notes, considered it was a throwaway thing. It was like that silly little song. Was it saying, to her, there was no, like When He Shines was a serious, fully rounded, great song. But for her, 9 to 5 was just a silly thing, like a
throwaway.
And of course, then it becomes the biggest song that she ever wrote. It's nud in America. It was like, and there's a whole funny thing about, it was competing with Dolly Parton, so she ends up knocking.
Dolly's came out first, so they changed it in the U.S. to Morning Train.
Yeah. And then Florrie too. She became the first British songwriter to have a #1 hit in the U.S. Right?
And isn't that amazing? Yeah, that's right. It's amazing. Yeah. So the story behind that song is quite something, really. And also what we're saying about American Push, that doesn't just happen. That EMI America, when they became aware of this girl who had gone from nothing to having hits all across Europe, big hits, they really put the weight behind her and greenlit. She's a priority, and made Morning Train, as it was renamed, was her first ever release in America. She was over there doing the TV shows, and she goes to #1. I mean, that really was unprecedented. Actually, I don't think you'd find many other acts at that time where that would happen.
No.
And of course, it was only a matter of months later when she was offered the Bond thing. So how people always talk about overnight sensations and meteoric rises, but her story in that first 12 months of her career is kind of amazing, really.
Yeah.
How quickly it happened.
She had 5 top 40 hits in the U.S. in the first year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing.
And was on the Oscars, the Grammys. She hosted the American Music Awards. It really was like an unbelievable year for her.
Yeah. And to do the Bond thing as well. Yeah, to talk about the Bond thing, and then and end up getting the Best Newcomer Grammy from this whole campaign. Yeah, it really was. It's such a. I mean, it was like she started at the top kind of thing with this.
Yeah, she really did. And then what I also find fascinating in these notes, which is I can't stop talking about it, is the tracks that they were going to pick for her that never were recorded. And I'm thinking, oh my God, one of them was Woman in Love by the 3 Degrees. And how funny that was going to be on her first album. And then, what was it, Fabulous? She did the 3 Degrees with Giving Up, Giving In.
Not Barbara's Woman in Love.
Right.
Which was the Bee Gees, of course. But Bugatti and Musker, their song Woman in Love ended up being recorded by the 3 Degrees. I'm not sure it was #1 in Britain. It may well have been #1 in Britain, actually. It was a big hit in Britain. It's a good song. And that was one of the songs. And Elkie Brooks was going to record it, then she wasn't going to record it. Then Elkie Brooks was going to record Modern Girl, and Elkie wanted them to change the lyric because people felt that the line, what was it? One of the lines in it, they felt that it was too sort of assertive.
Okay.
They're like, no, we don't want to change that. And so
tonight I'm going to stay at home and watch my TV.
Maybe it was that. Maybe it was that line. I feel there's another line as well. I can't remember. But
it was about her choice to like forego. Like they didn't like the fact that this woman was saying, you know what, I'm just going to stay home, not going out with you tonight.
Right. Yeah. Right. So yeah, in that area for sure. Yeah, and then of course it ended up with Sheena as her first single. But yeah, no, it's fascinating, the kind of the stories behind the songs. I always find it amazing, like when you find out, oh, so-and-so was going to record this song, or so-and-so was going to, or when someone's going to be in a movie and they turn down the role. All that stuff amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I just saw the other day that Bette Midler was offered the role that ended up in Misery, that was Kathy recently.
Wow.
Like, oh my mind is now blown.
Yeah, no, I don't think I would. I think the casting was perfect the way they did it.
Oh yeah, no, I think they were right in that case. But you often hear, but you find out that songs that become a big hit had at one point been passed by someone else. It's always interesting.
Yeah, 100%. And I always love how, I think it was in Rolling Stone when they did the interview with Sheena. It was the height of the Sugar Walls coming out, and she had mentioned how she loved, I think it was Heart Song. I forget which one it was. Do you remember, Chris?
Alone.
I thought it was Love is a Battlefield,
but it was also Hearts. These Dreams.
These Dreams. Okay.
Yeah. She was. Why wasn't that sent to me? You know.
Yeah, well, she could have. Yeah, there's so many songs that were hits that you think.
Yeah, that's. I could hear her singing that actually.
Totally.
Did anyone talk about? Have you heard the Rumour? Like why that was not included in the album?
Yeah. So Have You Heard the Rumour is a song. When we were doing when I was going through the Vault stuff, that was the one completed song from this era that was shelved, which is now on the Deluxe Edition on the CD, which is a Leeson and Vale song. And Peter Vale said that they originally pitched that song. It was actually originally pitched for Cliff Richard, who you mentioned earlier. And he wasn't sure why it never... And I also asked Chris, and he couldn't remember the specifics of why they didn't. You know, obviously that I assume that they had, they had their 12 tracks. I kind of think it makes sense. It certainly sounds very much a part of that sound they were doing at the time. Yeah. It totally fits in, and it could have been. It could well have been used as an album track or a B-side. It's of that quality. I don't think there's a place for it on the album as it stands. I think what they ended up with on the album was really a strong selection. And I feel that like some of those, although I love songs like Paradox and Moody, I feel they probably don't quite fit the mood of the album. Maybe they take it to a different, if they included it, would have switched it more to something else. I think the balance they got was really good.
I'm wondering why, because when I listen to Paradox and Moody on the past releases, her vocals seemed like they were buried a little bit and the music was more up front. And I'm wondering if that was one of the reasons why, where she wasn't predominantly up front on like the vocals. When you listen to I Heard a Rumour, oh my God, her vocals are incredible. They're right up front. It's clear.
Sure.
And crisp.
I hadn't really noticed that before. Maybe that's possibly. I don't know. I think that maybe what happened was also, by the time it came to, she had that 2 single deal, and those 4 songs have been out, as it were, the A side and the B side. Yep. And then they knew and then they did the third single, the third UK single, One Man Woman, and there was another B side for that. So they had done these 6 songs in effect, and then it was like, we need an album. We're going to do an album now. We've got to. And so maybe they were like, well, we have to include the hit A sides, but let's give the people, let's keep giving them new stuff. And so maybe they felt it was a bit much to kind of put all the B sides on as well, because people already bought them,
Right.
I think there was that going on as well. And so the whole, hence they were recording a bunch of new material for the album. Chris did tell me that one thing about B sides he did mention to me was that Sheena, in those, when they worked together, was very keen on the concept of B-sides, on giving fans something extra that wasn't on the album, which is why during that whole period they worked together, there's a whole bunch of extra songs, and they would do extra recording sessions that were specifically intended for B-sides. Because it wasn't like they recorded the album and they divvied up things. But another thing I wanted to mention actually, which only occurred to me, which I thought was quite interesting, which I hadn't really been clear to me in the past, but became apparent when I was doing these liner notes and speaking to the songwriters, was that, you know, a third, is it a third or is it a quarter? I don't know, a quarter of the album, a quarter of the tracks on the album are in fact covers. Although they're not covers of like hits, they're not covers of songs you know.
Okay.
Right.
But Prisoner was recorded by this new wave group called Susand and the Next, they're called. You can hear it, it's on Spotify. The song Don't Send Flowers was recorded first, not that long before Sheena's version came out, actually, but by a British group called Sailor. Not hugely dissimilar sounding in tempo to Sheena's versions, actually. Sheena's versions are more polished and brighter somehow. The production's better, I think. And then, of course, When He Shines, which Florrie had recorded.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. That's
so there a few of the songs were actually, you know. So you get the sense of like where these when they were putting together songs for it, they were trying to get the best songs and show a range. Because I suppose Prisoner is one of the most extreme examples, really, which is like out and out barroom rock, Pat Benatar style number.
And
I remember.
She always kind of does that on her releases too. There's always one that really stands out more than the popish songs, like Swear or something like Johnny, and there's always something that really stands out more than the others.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. You could do a fun compilation like Rock Sheena,
right,
yeah,
Ballad Sheena,
yeah. Yep.
And like it's like a different artist,
yeah.
You know,
I remember hearing her say that was her favorite song to record. I think probably because it was so different from the other material that she was given. And then that probably is why it was in her tour set for, you know, many years as the opener. And
it's perfect for a set opener, isn't it? It's
it also defies expectations. People that are coming there that's probably like, wow, like that's a good opener to say, you know, it may not be what you're expecting, because the concerts were definitely more rock oriented than the albums. If you look, you know, that if you look at Live at the Hollywood Palace, which was also released recently through.
Well, I know when my first, after Morning Train came out, I think it was 82. It was right before You Could Have Been With Me was released, and I seen her in concert, and I'm thinking, well, you know, she's going to come out in a little skirt with a lunchbox, skipping across the stage, la 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 la, and it wound up. She opened with Prisoner, and it was like banging. Like the band was incredible.
Yeah. It's interesting to think of her as well, the context of the time when she was coming out. Who were the big stars, you know, who were the big female stars? And it was your Pat Benatars and your Olivia Newton-Johns. And it was before quite fundamentally, I think before, when once Madonna comes into the pop world, which isn't until a few years after this, it changes everything.
Yeah.
And the kind of decisions that are, so the kind of, not that Sheena's trying to be Madonna in any sense, I don't mean that, but I just mean it informs the way in which what kind of music, what the expectations are, and what the presentation of music is, and for women in rock music. It's interesting, I think. But at this point, Olivia Newton-John hadn't done Physical when this record came out.
Right.
Right.
And it was a game changer as well.
Before Madonna.
Pre-Madonna, absolutely, yeah.
So Adam, because we have a couple questions from the fans.
Right.
We wanted to know, what can they expect coming up for this year? Any re-releases?
What more releases? Well, we've just put out, so simultaneous to the CD, the deluxe Take My Time, is this, the vinyl, coloured vinyl, I should say. Yes. So hopefully you guys will get your copies soon.
Beautiful.
Love it. Oh, come on.
Now, is that the artwork from the first album replicated from the UK pressing or the USA pressing?
A bit of both.
Okay.
Because this was the American version.
Okay.
But brighter.
But bright, yeah. So this is the more like the British version.
Yeah.
There was never an inner sleeve, so that's a
Right.
whole new thing.
And is it called Take My Time?
It's called Take My Time. Yeah. So it's the 12 tracks. It's the original 12 track. Yeah, not the edited version. And so that's the first of what we're calling the vinyl collection.
Ah.
So
incredible.
Here. Can't we do it? Yes. Sheena Easton, the vinyl collection. So this is the first vinyl collection. So and they're coming out in order. So the next one coming out will be You Could Have Been With Me. Music and so on, so on, so on. So they will continue to come out all on colored vinyl.
And Adam, what can we expect on You Could Have Been With Me? Anything?
Well, You Could Have Been With Me will be on vinyl. It'll be the straight up American version of the vinyl. Okay. And then also, we have for Record Store Day, which is in the end of April. Mm-hmm. It's already been announced, actually, is a double vinyl. It's called the Essential
Collection, right?
Yeah, the Essential Singles. Yes, and so that's not all the singles from EMI because otherwise there'd be a triple. It'd be ridiculous. So it's all the big ones, all the big hits. Plus, very excitingly, a bonus 7-inch, which will be Anything Can Happen backed with, or double A side with Sweet Talker.
Oh,
they were never released.
Nice. You had Ike at bonus 7-inch.
Wow, and up it should say.
So that'll be coming out on Record Store Today, and then in the summer we will have another. Should I say what it is?
Oh, please do.
Madness, Money, and Music will be the next. Yeah, which will be a deluxe edition and the vinyl as well. But there's various bonuses. There's a DVD attached. I don't want to go into the details of what those are yet because it's still in.
What if I told you I stopped recording and I swear I wouldn't put it out? No, don't. I'm only kidding because I will put it out.
But yeah, so there's a lot coming up, and it will continue to be releases coming out every few months, really.
That's incredible. This was really a prize, but I'm so excited for this. I really am.
Oh, great! No, I'm glad that we finally got there with Take My Time. It's finally coming out. It's really
the liner notes, the pictures, the quality.
Oh, yes.
All the fans are talking about it on the social media pages that that have received it, and they're all saying the same thing. What a beautiful packaging, and it's like all of your work so far. It's been very respectful, and we're very appreciative of the effort that you've been taking with these projects.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's been a real labor of love to get to get it out there, to try and to speak to all the people that were involved at the time, and it's a long time ago. This is like going on to 40 years now. So some people are. So when you send, I send like a track to Chris Neal. Say, oh my God, I found a track. I found Have You Heard the Rumour? He's like, I don't remember. I mean, it's so long ago.
Sure.
You don't have to even remember it.
Yeah.
And there's other things for other ones where I've sent it. It's like, I don't even remember. Do you remember who wrote this? I don't know. I don't remember. Because it's that long ago. And then one way or another, I've ended up tracking things down. But it's very interesting, sort of excavating the past and finding these hidden songs.
Thank God for Wikipedia, because I love going through all her albums and looking at how the track listings, who wrote them, the progression, where they peaked, and how far they got. So interesting.
I mean, even finding like on the CD. There's the instrumental version of Morning Train and of Mongo, and you can hear the backing track. You can hear all the backing vocals in a way. Oh wow! You know, you can hear things you maybe haven't heard before. That's fascinating.
Right. Yeah.
So it's been really good doing it. Yeah, it's been real labor.
Well, we thank you so much. But we have a question. We have two from
Right.
Kay, who I know you've worked with before. Kay, I always see him on the liner notes as well. He said, Grammy and American Music Awards are distributed in an inflationary manner these days. Looking back, what does Adam think is Sheena's most underrated album, which should have been prized with a Grammy?
Wow.
I have my answer.
I'm tempted to say Man with Money and Music.
That's my answer.
Yeah, just because I think that, like, vocally, there's just not she doesn't put a foot wrong on that album, as far as I'm concerned, in terms of the selections of the material, her vocal performance.
Mine would have probably been a Private Heaven, because there was so much off of that album. It was, 2 top 10 hits, which she hasn't had on any of the other albums, and
yeah.
Still
her most
that's definitely another solid.
No Strings was their choice.
Oh, really? Interesting. Yeah, another great. Yeah.
All right, we got one more, which is, I like this question from Kay. Way back in 1983, Sheena sang backups on stage with Olivia Newton-John for Billy Squier as the Strokeettes on the song The Stroke. Who do you have to get laid to see this video?
Is there actually a video of it? Back then, I don't think there probably is not a video of it. I know there's a picture of them together, the three of them together.
Yes, I saw that quite recently, yeah, a picture of Olivia and Sheena together, yeah.
And the story goes that Olivia was originally, and whether or not, again, this is stories, right? Who knows? But Olivia was supposed to be the one that was going to be doing background vocals. Sheena was dating and president of a label at the time, who asked if she could also join on stage.
Oh, really? Right.
I don't know. Again, I don't know if that's true or not, because, to me, it would be the artist asking both of them to, and they, both were the hottest female acts at the time. So,
well, why don't we just ask? I'll call her. Give me your number. What's Sheena's number, Adam? I'll call real quick.
I'm sure I read recently about how, I don't know if it was a comment that Sheena made after Olivia died recently, or whether it was actually about how Olivia was just the sweetest person, and early in her career when she first met her, she was like very supportive and said, if you need any advice, you can talk to me. And she kind of, which you hear from many people about Olivia, just that she was this lovely, down to earth.
Sheena said she was the one of the nicest people she ever met in the industry. Wow. She invited her to her house for parties in the beginning. Yeah, it was like, again, a lot of female artists probably would have been threatened by the new kid in town, but I think that's just, like you're saying, very indicative of all the stories that we've heard about Olivia from people that are in the industry,
Yeah.
I just read one where Richard Marx, he had always had a crush on her. And when he met her a few times after working with her, he wrote her a note professing his love for her. And
Sheena?
Oh, really?
Olivia.
Oh.
And Olivia, he said she never responded to it, but she also never acted any different with him. And he realized after the fact that she probably got letters like that all the time from you guys, like, I've always loved you and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, and we developed a very nice friendship, but he's like, I, like most guys in her life, were in love with her. And, and that's just.
That's so funny. I love these stories. So, Adam, thank you so much for joining us again, as always. This is our 4th time having you on as our guest.
I know, it's amazing. I'm like, it's home from home.
Yeah, it's so exciting. And the fans love that you come on here, and we're grateful for that. You have no idea.
Well, thank you for having me on again, and thank you for supporting the whole, reissue campaign. It's great. I'm really, pleased to do it.
Yeah, congratulations
thank
on an
you.
amazing release. And tell everybody where they can find how to get the CD DVD compilation, if you can.
Well, I guess it should be available on Amazon and everything like that, or you can go directly to the Cherry Red Records website, and everything's on there. So that's for the current, for the CD DVD, for the deluxe edition, and this yellow vinyl thing. I was just waving around. For the record store day thing, I've seen people talk about that, and there seems to be some misinformation. So record store day, I'm pretty sure internationally it's the same day.
Okay.
If I'm right, it's the 24th of April or the 22nd. I think it's 24th of April.
I think it's the 24th. Yeah.
24th, yeah. And that is, and so in the US and in the UK, it's international.
Yeah.
So but it is the whole point of record store days. You go into the record store and buy the record, so you can't order it online. Right. Although undoubtedly after the event, people will be selling them on eBay and what have you.
It's Saturday, April 22nd.
Oh, it is the 22nd.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So you probably would be able to get one online, but you're best off, if you can, trying to go to a local record store, because that's why they do it, to promote people going to actual record stores and buy the vinyl. Because sometimes when people try and sell it afterwards, they double the price.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. So it's
yeah. I went last year. I got it at Coachella. Actually, they had a pop-up record store for Record Store Day, and there were 3 copies of the double extended 12-inch, and I happened to got. She put it aside for me, and I was able to get it while I was at Coachella. So it was kind of cool.
Because I actually went around. I went to 3 shops near me on the day last year, and I couldn't get one.
Wow.
I don't know whether they didn't have it or they could. Oh, there it is. Yeah.
Oh God, that's what I miss. Opening it up, reading it, and just smelling that vinyl. It's just the best. That is incredible. I love that. One of my favorite pictures. I can't tell you how many times I tried to replicate that in the 80s. So Adam, this is the part where we wave goodbye. Thank you again so much.
Thank you both, and I'll see you next time.
Oh, we can't wait.